A fabulous yeast dough smeared with chocolate hazelnut filling, sprinkled with chocolate chips and hazelnuts, rolled, split, braided, and baked. Best sweet treat ever. Let's make homemade chocolate hazelnut babkas. Here's where this recipe is going. We start by making an easy, sweet, buttery yeast dough. We're gonna smear the dough with chocolate hazelnut spread plus chocolate chips and toasted hazelnuts. We're gonna roll it up, split it, braid it, then bake it in papered loaf pans. And then, when they come out of the oven, we brush them with a sweetened glaze. Better still, it's a 2-for-1 special because you're gonna be able to enjoy one loaf, but there's a second loaf that you're gonna be able to wrap up all festive and fancy to give to a friend. The recipe begins with us making a glorious yeast dough. You're gonna need to make the dough the day before you intend to bake your babkas. Let's make that yeast dough now. About an hour before making the dough, we're gonna take 10 tablespoons of butter out of the fridge, cut the butter into small cubes. We're bringing it to room temperature along with 3 eggs. I'm also taking a navel orange, grating about 1 teaspoon of zest off it. When you're good to go, stovetop small saucepan, we're gonna warm 1/2 cup of whole milk. Not too hot, we want it warm. Temperature should be around 110 Fahrenheit. Pour the warm milk into a small bowl, add a pinch of sugar, stir to dissolve, then sprinkle in 1 tablespoon of active dry yeast, stir it again, then cover and leave the yeast mixture to proof for 10 minutes. Yeast is proofing. Now we're gonna do a very simple dry mix. You can do this directly in the bowl of your stand mixer. I'm doing it in a little bowl because I want you to see all the action. Medium bowl, 3 3/4 cups of unbleached all-purpose flour. That's 530 grams. We're gonna add 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. Let's say you're not a fan of nutmeg, just swap it out with cinnamon. Whisk the dry mix to combine, then you can transfer it to the bowl of your stand mixer. The mixer is fitted with a hook attachment. Take a small bowl. We're gonna add the 3 eggs plus 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract and a teaspoon of orange zest. Grab a fork, whisk those ingredients together. Now the stand mixer is running on low speed. We're gonna add that egg mix in. Next we add in the proofed yeast. Run the mixer on low for about 3 minutes. The dough comes together in no time. Making this yeast dough is extra simple, especially because we're leaving all the hard work to the stand mixer. Now we're gonna add the butter into the bowl little by little. The stand mixer is running on low speed. Once the butter is added, we're gonna turn the machine onto a moderate speed and let it run for 10 minutes. You can feel free to scrape down the sides of the bowl, and before you know it, you have a gorgeous ball of dough for the babkas. Almost done. Grab a medium-sized bowl, rub a bit of vegetable oil to the bottom and sides, place the dough in. We're gonna cover the dough and then refrigerate it overnight. This overnight chill time gives the gluten in the dough a chance to relax, but it also allows for the flavors of the butter, sugar, orange, and spices, gives them a chance to meld. This dough is super fab. Now, let's continue next day. Bring the dough out of the fridge, give it an hour to come to room temperature. Another thing, the oven's gonna go to 350 degrees. We're gonna spill 1 cup of hazelnuts onto a parchment-lined baking tray. They go into the oven. Roast our nuts for 10 minutes, then transfer them to a dish towel-lined bowl. We're gonna gather up the dish towel, leave them to steam in there for about 10 minutes, give them a firm rub. Instant way to skin hazelnuts. Now we're gonna grab a cutting board, roughly chop half the quantity of the hazelnuts. We're gonna finely chop the other half. Before we shape the babkas, grease 2 9 by 5 inch loaf pans with a titch of vegetable oil. Then we're gonna line them with strips of parchment. Notice this gorgeous vintage loaf pan. There's a reason why I'm using it. More about that in a bit. Now for the fun part. If you have kids in your midst or grown-ups who are young at heart, call them into the kitchen. Shaping babkas is a ton of fun. Here we go. Begin by flouring your pastry board. Divide the dough into 2 equal-sized portions. Flour the dough lightly, flour your pin. Roll the first portion of dough out into a 9 by 16 inch rectangle. Wait, did someone say chocolate hazelnut spread, mini semi-sweet chocolate chips, and toasted hazelnuts? You betcha. You'll need a small 375 gram jar of chocolate hazelnut spread for the recipe. Offset spatula helps us smear the spread across the dough. Try to get it in a smooth layer as close to the edges of the dough as you can. Next, the recipe calls for 1 cup of mini semi-sweet chocolate chips. Sprinkle half that quantity onto this first babka, then add some of the roughly chopped hazelnuts and some finely chopped hazelnuts too. Wow, this recipe is on a roll. Rolling the babka up, long edge goes forward nice and tight, then grab a sharp knife and cut the babka right down the middle through the entire roll. Pinch one end and then a very simple but kind of firm over, under, back and forth braid. We're showing off that hazelnutty chocolate interior. We're lifting and then transferring our first babka to the loaf pan. But wait, there's 2, right? Let's run some music because I'm super happy to be able to show you the entire process again. Last thing, we're going to cover the babkas with wrap and place them into a warm location to plump up for an hour and a half. Last 2 steps coming up, we bake and we glaze. Oven is preheated to 350 degrees. The babkas go in for 40 minutes. While they're baking, we're going to make a simple, and I mean simple, syrup glaze. Half a cup of water and half a cup of granulated sugar into a small saucepan. Dissolve the sugar, bring it to a boil, immediately take it off the heat. We're gonna have it standing by with a pastry brush. Open the oven, we're gonna test the babkas at that 40-minute mark. If the tester goes in without tension, your babkas are done. Immediately transfer them out of the oven over to your work surface and start brushing them with that sweet glaze. Look at how the babkas soak it up. They just love it. Cool them until warm, then we're gonna lift them up out of the loaf pans, transfer them to a wire rack to cool completely. You're ready to see what they look like? Grab a serrated knife, cut generous slices, and then the interior, you can see that ribboning of chocolate and hazelnut. It is so scrumptious. Love serving these in the afternoon with coffee or right before bed as a head to dreamland treat. Now, how about that gorgeous vintage loaf pan? I cleaned it up and then returned the babka within, wrap it up with cello and add a festive ribbon. Instant holiday or just because gift idea. How perfect. Know what else is perfect? The full recipe is up at weekendatthecottage.com. When you're visiting our website, please subscribe to it. Look for this video on our dedicated YouTube channel. You can subscribe to it as well. And then finally, take a picture of your babka and post it on your favorite socials using hashtag weekendatthecottage when you do on Pinterest, Instagram, and Facebook. Homemade chocolate hazelnut babkas. Wow. Oh my gosh. So good. Oh, you gotta make them. Great.